Netflix High Score, Ian, was a video game history documentary series. I was sent an early preview of it a few weeks ago. I watched a chunk of the 6 episodes. I'm a little hazy in some of the details now, but I do have the synopsis open on Netflix here. You watched, I believe, the first episode.
I watched the first episode. I'll be gentle, but basically I thought it was shot well. You know, it was produced nicely.
Good production values.
Yeah, good production values.
Went to Japan.
Looked nice. I enjoyed some of the interviews they did. I enjoyed the bit with Toru Iwatani.
Pac-Man creator.
Yeah, creator of Pac-Man. It was, I mean, there was some bits that were nice, at least in the first episode. It was nice, and now I feel bad because I forgot his name, the guy who created the cartridge. It was nice to see him get his due. But all in all, I found it to
Jerry Lawson.
All in all, I found it to be a fairly, it was all over the place. I was expecting it to be focused. I was expecting something along the lines of the Toys That Made Us, but for video games. But it's not what I got. And honestly, if you enjoy it, more power to you. But this is not to sound negative. I work in a video game store. I do a video game podcast, and video gaming is, believe it or not, still a big hobby of mine. I'm not looking for more video game content that is surface level. Well, I guess
past couple years we've been getting a lot more video game documentaries, but most of them are very niche topics that you dive deep into. Like,
right.
Let's go to a studio and see how they made Half-Life.
Right.
Or
and I like
which
that.
appeal to a small amount of people, but it's in depth though.
But that's what I enjoy.
Yeah. Tony Hawk one's coming up, I believe.
So Tony Hawk one is out. I'd like to see that.
That's out.
My Life in Gaming did the one on M2, and they did the one on Night Trap.
Yes.
So there are good video game documentaries out there that dive deep, and maybe that's not going to appeal to everyone. Maybe this is going to hit a broader market, but I just don't. I feel like this one tried to play it safe, and by doing that, I don't think it's really grabbing anyone.
It's too safe. It's in this weird nether region of it's not too detailed, but then it's skipping over important topics and not going in depth on ones they should have.
Sure. And
covering esoteric things too much that are footnotes or unheard of in video game history. So like they skip over Ralph Baer in the first episode. Like, he's not even mentioned.
Right.
That's not just disrespectful. You have to at least bring him up, even for like a minute or 30 seconds, and you go right to Space Invaders and right to Atari. So you start at the wrong location. Like, you already started a few years. Then they go back to Jerry Lawson. I'm glad they talked to Jerry Lawson because he's sort of forgotten about it. They talked to his family.
Talked about him. I was going to say.
Talked to his family. Well, I keep saying that because when I thought of, I may have an idea for my own series. Jerry Lawson should be covered. I'm glad they covered him, but they spent like 15 minutes on that. It's not enough time then to go to other things. It's like the time is not.
See, I almost feel like the amount of time is fine for that because he's never covered. So give the guy his due. But but then at that point in time, it's like, well, then cover everything that hasn't gotten it. It's just it's all over. It's just very strange. It's very weird.
I love Chris Tang. Absolutely adore the guy. He shows up in episode 5 or 4. And they talk about, because Chris talks about it, they talk about this like esoteric Sega tournament that happened in like, it was like 93 or 94, what have you. Sega World Championships. Like, it's talked about for like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's this very esoteric thing that almost no one heard of, that a blip in game history at most. And they put 5 whole minutes to it because Chris is talking about it and he was there. So then I started to realize that's how they constructed this documentary. They had a very limited number of people they interviewed for each episode. Like, it was no more than like 8 people.
They structured it based on the amount of content that they were able to get out of it.
So it wasn't, okay, these are the topics we want to cover. Now let's find the people to interview. They had, no, this is our interviewee list. Let's build out of the episodes out of this.
So without me having seen it all, but listening to what you've said and what I saw in the first episode, does it seem right that basically they, instead of kind of doing the other way around, like, well, not to bring it up, but video game years, shot a shitload and had to find a way to cram it into the 45.
Edit it down.
This seems like it was more like edited out.
Yes. So this was, let's see what we get and let's form episodes around this. So the worst example of this And there was good stuff in here. Like Night Trap was great. They went deep dive. Night Trap was like 10, 12 minutes. If in episode 5, I remember I was like, this is going on for a while, and then obviously it has.
See, but weird thing there, because Night Trap has its in-depth documentary,
and 10 to 12 minutes is fine, but not if you only have 6 episodes, and each episode is averaging only 40 minutes,
right?
And you're trying to tell the first basically 25 years of video game history. You don't need 12 minutes on Night Trap. You might need like 2. Like that's the thing. It's like what are we trying to do here? But episode 6 was called Level Up. Covers the transition from 2D to 3D computer graphics in '93 by both Nintendo and consoles with Star Fox, and for computers, along with the introduction of online multiplayer gaming by id Software with Doom. Features interviews by John Romero, creator of Doom, and Dylan Cuthbert. And Giles Goddard, who helped to create Star Fox.
I like all those people. I'd like to hear from them, but...
And a final retrospective by Nolan Bushnell on the development of Pong from Space War. So... this to me seemed like, well, we can't fit this into the other episodes, but let's make a 6th episode. Because when I watched that episode, it went from Doom to Argyle Software and Star Fox, back to Doom, and then it went to multiplayer, and then it went to Nolan Bushnell, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, when you talk to me, I felt like, okay, so they're talking about the transition of 3D, and that's what it says in the description, but if it's not shot that way...
So it's not... The content itself isn't bad. I'm not trying to slam this. The content isn't bad, but how it's structured doesn't make any sense for a lot of this. Like, why is Nolan Bushnell closing out the series talking about Pong and Space War? That should have been in the first episode.
Right.
That should have been after you talk about Ralph Baer in theory at all. You go to Nolan Bushnell, then try to do a through line to the Atari. There was no through line to a lot of these episodes. There wasn't. I mean, I guess the console wars one you can probably say, but then let's see. They talk about that Sega World Championship, then they talk about Madden football, and they try to talk about sports a little bit, and it's just they're trying to connect these things that don't necessarily connect together here.
Right.
Episode 3 was adventure games and computer role playing. Colossal Cave Adventure, which got into the Hall of Fame. Mystery House, they got the Williams couple, Ken and Roberta, which was great. And then they did Richard Garriott, and then Yoshitaka Amano, artist for Final Fantasy, Ryan Bass, developer of the Gay Blade. So that's interesting because that's something that literally no one really heard of until in the fall they found the box version. So that's cool, but that's a footnote that we didn't know about. So it's cool to include that, but if you are really trying to do the history of video games, that has to take a backseat to other things to get it in first. That's just the bottom line here. So this is a tough one to work through. So the weirdest thing to me was...
It's like a weird mix of stuff that's too obvious and too deep and not finding
there's no
middle ground. Yeah.
So the weirdest thing to me was, like, it's called Boom or Bust, the first episode, and it ends with I mean, really glossing over what led to the video game crash in North America. So they talked to our buddy Howard Scott Warshaw about E.T., so then the end of the first episode is like, well, here comes a video game crash. So I expected, episode 2 is going to talk about the video game crash. No, they just skip it and go to Nintendo.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah.
So
strange, because they definitely made it seem like that was going to be the entirety of episode 2.
No, they don't mention it really. It's just, here comes Nintendo with Donkey Kong and the NES. And then they go to the Game Boy and Nintendo Power. So like episode 2 is like all Nintendo stuff, but it's all disjointed. It's like, here's a crash course in 80s Nintendo history, but that's it. Then you go to episode 3 with episode 4 is the console wars. Excuse me, 3 is the RPG stuff. So that's the thing. It's like it's not even a crash course because a crash course covers everything like quickly. This doesn't even cover everything. It covers bits and pieces of weird things. So I mean, yeah, production wise, it's fantastic. It's shot beautifully.
No, it looks great.
The interviews are done. It seems like they're done well, but this was really to me a case of we have a limited budget in terms of people we're going to go see and shoot, and let's build out our episodes from there.
Sure.
So that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, check it out. It's worth checking out because the more of these, the better, I'd say. And but there's always room for improvement.